Hello and welcome to 9394. I'm Travis, your host. Thanks for joining me. I'm excited about today. I'm excited about every episode. I start every episode the same. Hey, I'm really excited about today, but that's because I'm always excited to do this podcast. What can I tell you? I love talking about music, especially albums from this era, but I especially love getting to talk with my own brother, Judd. Judd Roy has come back on the show to talk about Frank Black and his 1993 self-titled album, which was a big deal for both of us. And as you'll see, we kind of came to it separately. Growing up, Judd's best friend was friend of the show, Dave Horning, who of course is like family to me as well, and a dear friend. And at one point, Dave had a car, a Pontiac 6000, that he sold to me. Well, really, he sold it to my mom, who gave it to me for my 16th birthday. I was bought a car for my 16th birthday. That is pretty spoiled, but I was pretty lucky. A Pontiac 6000, I want to say it was like an 89, 90? I don't know, somewhere around there. Anyways, he called it, when it was his car, the Aluminum Falcon. And then he went on to have a band that was also called the Aluminum Falcon. So you'll hear us reference the Aluminum Falcon once or twice in this episode. And Judd and I also get into, some family stuff. A little bit more than last time when he was on talking about Bad Religion. Which is good for us. Like all the men in our family, we both have shit memories. We often refer to it as goldfish brain or goldfish memory. We rely on one another to fill in the gaps of our lives, and we had some fun doing that for this episode. So check it out. This is me and my brother Judd talking all about Frank Black and other stuff too.
I met a man, he was a good man, sailing and shoring, dancing the beta can-can, making me foreign, oh yeah.
Go.
Hey, brother.
Hey, brother. How you doing?
Good, how you doing?
I'm all right. I'm just kind of relaxing.
Look at you. I feel like I just saw you.
Yeah, a couple days ago, actually. Your drive back went all right, I guess?
Yeah, it was fine. Are you ready to at last do the Frank Black episode?
Yes, sir.
Let's get into it. We've been talking about doing it for a while, so that gave me a lot of time to listen to it, as I bet you've been listening to it a lot too, which I have no complaints about. This is an album I'm happy to spend a lot of time with. It's funny to me that we both kind of got into this album independently.
Really?
We did. Do you remember how you got into it?
Well, you're talking to the oldest goldfish of the brothers, so I can tell you what I think I remember.
Okay.
What I remember is watching the Los Angeles video on TV, and I had a thing about hovercrafts back then for some reason.
You did. That's right. I forgot.
I think when I was younger, I really wanted a remote control hovercraft for the pond behind our house.
Mm-hmm.
I must have asked Santa for that one about 400 times.
Never came.
Oh, Santa's a prick. Anyways, yeah, that video came out, and I just thought it was wild, man, and just the music sounded different, and I really got into it there. And side note, I think that video was directed by the They Might Be Giants guy, one of the They Might Be Giants guys.
I have zero recollection of the video. There was a hovercraft in the video?
Yeah, he's a big bald meatball driving around in an open-topped hovercraft, like Mad Max looking.
Good man, sailing and shoring, you got a Betatron man, talking that foreign, ah yeah.
I got into it in a different way. You, like me, we would have been familiar with Pixies. I mean, I don't know how much I really listened to them. I didn't buy Doolittle, I think, until after I bought this Frank Black album.
Oh, yeah.
So I was aware of them. I heard singles and stuff, but I wasn't into them, you know? And then he released this album, this self-titled album, Frank Black. And he was on 89X, our local radio station, like alternative radio station, promoting it. He did like a late night show it was like him and an acoustic guitar, and he came on and talked about the album and played 3 songs.
That's wild.
Yeah, it was cool. He played the first 3 songs, and he was like, I don't know which songs to play, so I'll just play the first 3, which incidentally included like the 2 singles and the reason why the album exists, which is Hang On to Your Ego.
I know so many people who think they can do it alone. They isolate their heads and stay in their city zone. But what can you tell them? What can you say that would make them defensive? So hang on to your ego.
He was originally going to do this album as an album of covers, and that's why he came up with Hang On to Your Ego.
Yeah. Which I just recently learned. I was like, I had no idea that was a Beach Boys song.
I had no idea. I think I was watching Love and, what's that John Cusack movie? Love and Music or some shit. Like, I forget what it's called.
Right.
It's the Beach Boys movie, or about one of them. Brian Wilson, I guess, one of them. I don't know the fucking Beach Boys at all. That's how I didn't know it was a Beach Boys song. But yeah, I only found that out a couple years ago. But yeah, so I'm listening to the radio and I'm just like, well, this is really fucking good. This is great. You know, I'm like, this is amazing. So I went on BMG or Columbia House, whichever one at the time, and ordered the cassette through there. And it was funny because you did the same thing. We both bought cassettes. I have this cassette here, actually. I lost the case for it some time ago, but still have the cassette.
See, when you're saying you got the cassette, I'm like, oh my God, did I steal Travis's cassette? I could have swore I ordered my own.
There was a lot of albums that we would share, but this was like, no. This was mine. I'm getting mine. You get yours. It was like very much like a no. Like, I don't want to fucking have to mess with you and listen to this album. I just want to get it for my collection.
Just to be clear, you're the one that was going to go to jail for all the things you were stealing from that music company. So I was the one stealing from you. I was like, I'm not going to jail, but I'll steal from Travis. I'll take this Paw album and maybe this or that.
I got that Paw album.
I know you do.
Yeah, so this is one that I spent a lot of time with growing up, and it definitely got me into the Pixies. You know, other friends were into them, and our step aunt Laura was really into the Pixies, so we were hearing them a lot. But once I got into this album, it was all over, which in a lot of ways, this is almost a Pixies album. It's Frank Black and Joe Santiago.
The original Pixies.
Yeah.
The way you got into the Pixies is basically the same as me. Mm-hmm. Like, I got into Frank Black first, listened to that entire album. I'd heard of the Pixies. And then I met a waitress at Pizza Hut when I worked there that just was like in love with the Pixies. And I think at some point I figured out, oh, he was a part of the Pixies. And I went over to Doolittle, and I think I just like dived headfirst into the Pixies after that. And then after I was through all the Pixies albums, then Teenager of the Year, I was like, oh, I should pick that one up. And I've never left Frank Black or Charles Michael Kittredge Thompson the Fourth, or Black Francis, or whatever he's going by today.
We did the same thing independently of one another in the house. I got into the Pixies and dug into all their stuff, and I got Surfer Rosa and I got Doolittle within 93, partly because of this album. And then by the time 94 rolled around and Teenager of the Year came around, we were like full-blown fans. We were like, well collected, their stuff.
Yeah. Breeders, that one came out. That was really good too, but I just never got full into the Breeders.
When I talk to other people and read about stuff, the Breeders, especially that album Last Splash, seems to loom really, really large and be like a big takeaway for people for alternative music from the era. And for me, it wasn't something I really got into. I was doing this album and Cult of Ray.
Cult of Ray, yeah, that's my favorite one.
Yeah. So what's your favorite track on this album? Can you pick one?
Yeah, it's 10%er. It's definitely 10%er.
I'm just a
Wow. Again, we are in the same groove. That is my favorite track on this album as well.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I love it, and I love that it's like it kind of just speaks to my procrastinator type of. I'm only going to give 10% on most things. I'm sure our dad can attest to that when I was growing up. But yeah, I really like it. I really like the way it sounds. I like the lyrics. I like the story behind it. I have to love the Ann Arbor reference.
I think that played a part for us growing up outside of Ann Arbor. Like, he said Ann Arbor.
Yeah, that and just like, give 10% and, I'm just kind of, I guess what I liked about it most was like how he was so laid back. Like, I'm letting out the drifting line, just kind of like how things will be. I was so laid back when I was younger. Now that I've gotten older, everything sets me off for some reason, but when I was younger, I was a lot more laid back. You might not think that because I probably wasn't as laid back with you and some other things.
You had to vent somewhere or on someone.
I guess. I'm sorry. I thought that was more on my skateboard, but yeah, no, I mean, I think the letting out the drifting line part where he was just kind of like chill. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that song a lot.
And it also is very much a rock and roll song and driving and very almost aggressive by the standards of the album. It's one of the more intense, but yeah, it does have at the same time this underlying kind of chill kind of thing going on with it. It's a unique song. I think it's always been my favorite on the album. Sucking, slurping soda. I don't know why that lyric just like, yeah, I like soda. It does make you thirsty.
Yeah. And what's funny is like, a lot of it is like about the mind. Like he'll mention like, it's about like the brain, and like some of my favorite songs of his are like "Where's My Mind," 10%er, "Headache." It's like all the ones I really love are like singing about the brain for some reason. I don't know why that is.
You and I both have ADHD, and there's something
no HD on my side. I am not hyper.
So they don't have ADD anymore.
I still got it. I don't know what they're talking about.
No, the hyperactivity is not of the body; it's of the brain. It's of the mind.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I bounce all over the place.
Right. It's the hyperactivity of focus and attention that's not of the body, which is partly why it took us both so long to get diagnosed, because we're not the most physically hyperactive people, but our minds go a mile a minute. And this album kind of satisfies that, I think, in a lot of ways. There's so much going on with each individual song. From one song to the next, there's a lot of variety, but then within each song, there's also a lot going on. You can really feel him coming out of the Pixies and just letting loose. Not that I really feel like he was really restrained in the Pixies, but you can tell that he's like, I'm going to fuck around and experiment and get really weird. And he does.
Yeah, I agree. He really leans into his science fiction and religious references and kind of like that surfer sound. But I was talking to Sherry this morning about the Breeders and him.
Your wife, for the record.
Yeah. And we were talking about how both bands, Frank Black and the Breeders, sounded really good. And I was telling her my opinion about how Frank Black sounds really good. I really like his stuff. The Breeder stuff was really good too. But I mean, Frank Black albums, they always sound like Frank Black, which is great. I mean, he's great. And I'm sure the Breeders, I can't make any judgments on the Breeders because I'm not really as versed in them. But I know they broke up because of artistic differences and like them wanting to share the reins or fight over the reins of the Pixies.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, when those two were fighting over the reins of songs, like the Pixie stuff was just great.
Yeah.
Just the mix of both of them was great. When you take them apart, they're still good, but yeah, I'm glad that they went their separate ways and they haven't killed each other. But
yeah, I mean, it was a shame that a great band broke up, but two great acts came out of it.
True.
Did you get into much of Frank Black's other solo albums beyond the second album?
I pretty much stay. Let's just stay with Frank Black and that.
Frank Black and the Catholics.
Yeah. Well, did he do Black Francis and the Catholics, or was it Frank Black and the Catholics? I think it was Frank.
I think it was Frank Black and the Catholics, and then he went back to Black Francis. And to be honest, I just kind of stuck with just the Frank Black stuff.
Same.
I don't know why.
I just wish, like, if you're an artist, just stick with the name that you're, like stick. Okay, so maybe you wanted to try different sounds. Like Radiohead did different sounds, and they didn't have to change their name to 4 different things.
Right, exactly.
They kept their fans. But to answer your question, I mostly stuck with the Frank Black stuff. I did start listening to one of his albums, Frank Black and the Catholics, the Blue Finger album, I think. And it was really good. So I have that one on my Spotify, like downloaded, because I was like, I need to give this one a couple more listens. So
would you say that's your favorite outside of the first two solo Frank Black albums?
Yeah, mostly because that's the one I've only listen to.
No, well, that's a good reason. I listen to Honeycomb quite a bit. I like Honeycomb a lot, but Honeycomb is probably my second Frank Black album. This is probably my favorite Frank Black album. This first one, though.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
What's an underrated track on here for you?
Ooh, definitely Czar.
What the fuck, man? We picked all the same shit.
Oh, yeah?
That's so funny. yeah, Czar. I agree. Underrated track. It is such an awesome song.
I love that song. It's great. And when like the what's he say? Something about the oil, like when he screams oil, the national turmoil, and
Yeah.
I love that. It's just rocking, man. I love that song.
Yeah, it's one of those songs that only recently in like the heavily listen, because I mean I listened to a ton in 93, 94, 95, but you know, in getting ready for this episode, I've been listening to it a little bit more intently. I'm like, oh yeah, he's really singing about something here. Something to do with oil and oil. I don't know exactly. But you know what I mean? It's just like, it's got some of the most soaring, some of the most interesting moments on the album, I think, are in that song. But it's a thick album. There's what, like 16 tracks or something on here?
Yeah, there's a lot. But it's not as big as Teenager of the Year. I remember getting that CD and being like, oh my God, do I have time to listen to this today? Like, there was a lot on there if I remember. But you were talking about how Czar kind of goes all over the place with his voice, maybe? That's what you were talking about? I'm not sure.
Yeah, he does interesting things with his voice in there, and it's a very unique song, but it gets a little bit buried amongst the others because there's a lot happening, and it's, you know, each song is roughly 3 minutes long. They're all pretty pop length.
Right.
And again, like we're kind of ready to go to the next thing and like focused on the next thing. So that is one that I always liked, but didn't single out as much as maybe I should have. That and the last song was the other one I was kind of considering.
Don't You Rile 'Em.
Don't You Rile 'Em. I think that's also a really good track that you never really hear people talking about. Like when they're talking about the album, they'll talk about 10%er. People will talk about, of course, Los Angeles, and I heard Ramona sing and stuff, but I never really hear anyone talk about Don't You Rile 'Em when it's actually a really solid way to end an album.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that was going to be my outro. That's
really?
going to be
Okay.
my pick for the outro because it's such a great exodus.
We'll use it to exit.
Right. But as far as like underrated songs, like it was hard to pick between that one and Perry the Wind.
And if a ship meets your car, you know you can't go real far. Well, they could treat you real nice, or put a tracking device way down inside. I'm checking out invention at the UFO convention tonight.
Perry the Wind felt like, to me, I just feel like it's the beginnings of Cult of Ray. Like you can really feel like he's getting into the science fiction groove there, and it kind of starts to sound like the paving bricks of what Cult of Ray becomes.
That's funny because I love Cult of Ray, and I had to pick Perry the Wind High Low as my least favorite track on the album. For me.
Yeah, it's a pretty yowly. It seems kind of,
It's a little disjointed.
yeah.
It's almost, it's kind of a challenge to listen to. I do remember our friend Dave Horning in a band that he was in, Aluminum Falcon, back in the day, did a cover of
It's
it,
a great name.
which is a great name. So I have like affection for it because I remember him belting it out and loving that song.
Way down inside.
And it's from this album. I love every song on this album, so I do have appreciation for the song, especially the first part of the song. But I do kind of feel like by the second half of Perry the Wind, it starts to get, it just kind of feels like a different song in a way that sometimes he does that, where he'll have like 2 or 3 songs that kind of jam into one, and they don't really seem like they would work, but then they do. And this one, it doesn't quite work for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think every time I go around here, it has that break in the middle of the song where I think it starts another song. I'm like, oh, this must be another song. What is this song? Oh, it's the same song. Okay. It just sounds a little different. But I know what you mean. Yeah, it kind of breaks around in that one. But yeah, that one I did have a difficult time with because I just love Culture Ray so much. I was like, it just made me think of it. But
Yeah.
every time I put on Czar, it's like you're slapping your leg, you're tapping your foot, you're bobbing your head. It's a good rock song.
It keeps you moving, where Perry the Wind kind of like,
Experimental kind of.
yeah, it's a little bit more playful, which is fun, and I'm glad that he's doing that, but it's just not for me. Were you able to pick a least favorite song on the album?
Yeah, honestly, I couldn't say any of them are worse. Like there's some like the instrumental song "Tossed" is a great song.
I love it.
It's well done. I love to listen. I listen to it 99% of the time. But if I do skip a song because I want to hear Frank, that's the one I'll skip. It's not Fu Manchu. It's not Brackish Boy. Like those are funny. It's short.
I thought you were gonna pick Brackish Boy.
I like Brackish Boy.
I like it too.
Yeah,
I do.
but yeah, I think Tossed.
I appreciate that because you want Frank. You want to hear him sing.
Yeah, and he's not Mike Patton. He's not like a great singer, but he's the guy who sings. But I
Yeah.
love Frank Black. Yeah,
He's why you bought the ticket for the ride.
yeah.
And I think it's interesting because it suggests to me when an album has a song title and it's got the in parentheses instrumental that there is a vocal version out there somewhere that they just didn't feel like really worked, but they like the song, so they put it on there anyway. But that song gets stuck in my head a lot. Like I'll walk around with that song in my head a lot, especially the last few weeks since I've been listening to it a lot.
I believe it.
I'm glad neither one of us picked Brackish Boy. It's kind of a fucking weird little song, but it's, god damn it, it's our weird little song.
Yeah,
This man, he was a Mexican, oh yeah. Adopted into Norwegian, oh yeah. Turned into American, oh yeah. Well, he built a Mexican, oh yeah. Now Mexico,
a while ago, I looked into Charles Thompson, and I think he went to Portugal or he went somewhere for like a church thing when he was
Young.
in college.
Yeah.
For,
And got really into like Spanish shit.
yeah. So he went and did like a trip there, and then came back and was like, "Yeah, screw school. Hey Joey, let's make a band, the Pixies."
Yeah.
So I wonder if it has, because it talks about this guy going to like the Spanish place trying to do stuff, and then I don't know if it refers to that or not, but I like the little story of it.
Yeah, it's a sad little story.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it's quirky as fuck, and Frank Black is quirky.
Yeah, he is.
You and I think we talked about this briefly when you were on last time talking about Bad Religion, about some of the earlier stuff that we were listening to was pretty quirky. You know, Frank Black and like They Might Be Giants and some of that kind of stuff. It kind of tickled some of our like childishness, some of what he's got going on here, where it appealed to us because it's almost like cartoon music, some of it in a good
Yeah.
way. I mean that complimentarily.
Yeah, I agree. As long as it wasn't like mainstream, we were giving it a shot, you know, especially with the, what was the name of the cassette place
Columbia House?
yeah, with Columbia House, like we would just like pull in, like, I remember that's how I learned about Nine Inch Nails. Like I just like, I don't know what that is. I'll put that on my list as one of my free 8 ones or whatever they were, you know?
Yeah. You got 12 for a penny.
Yeah.
I would typically buy stuff that I was vaguely familiar with, or maybe I liked the cover.
Yeah.
Or like maybe I thought I was supposed to like the band. I remember I got Aerosmith's Get a Grip because I'm like, they're famous. I'm probably supposed to like them. And I got it. I'm like, I don't like this.
Yeah. I had a girlfriend who loved Aerosmith. Mary loved Aerosmith.
Mhm.
Like she always wanted to listen to it. I was like, veto, no.
Get a grip indeed. So back on Frank, I know you saw him live because we saw him together. Do you remember?
Yes, I remember because I asked my live-in brain, my wife. She reminded me, and it was
three of us that
March.
went.
Yeah, she said it was you, me, and Travis. She said I couldn't remember if Dave was there or not.
It's just the three of us.
Just three of us, and it was in '96, and it was during the Cult of Ray stuff.
Yep, it was right when Cult of Ray came out, but we had it. We were familiar with the album. It was
Yeah.
at St. Andrews in Detroit.
And I do remember being excited because I'd heard a story about one of his performances live, and I was hoping he would do it, and he did not do it. But the story was he was doing a concert, and every song he had a guitar, and then he would throw it around his back, onto his back, and then the next song he'd come out, someone would bring out another guitar, and he'd play that song, and then he'd throw that over his back.
So we had a bunch of guitarists.
By the end of the concert, he looked like a freaking armadillo with all these damn guitars. And I don't know if that's a true story or not, but I was hoping he would do that.
It does sound a little unwieldy. Like it
Yeah,
might
it
start to
does.
get like hard to move your arms.
yeah. The story says, he had all these guitars. Maybe he only had like 3 on there or something. But
Yeah.
what do you remember from it?
Nothing. I remember
Really?
standing by the merch table and like looking at the poster that was like a Cult of Ray tour thing and kind of like wanting that, which later on in life I learned you could just ask them like, hey, can I have that? And they'd be like, yeah, because they're not going to advertise for the show the night after. So I used to,
Really? They do that?
oh yeah, I got a whole bunch of handbills back in the day from
Smart.
St. Andrews. So I remember looking at that and be like, I want that, but not getting it. And then I have zero recollection of being inside. I couldn't tell you a single song he played. It's like teenage brain. It's just misty, murky past. It's gone.
I remember like my thoughts about it.
Yeah.
The music was really good, but his live singing was, like it was all right. I mean, granted, this guy is known on, I think on Wikipedia as being labeled as like yowly, which is like a great descriptor for his voice. Like he'll go up and down, and I know he kind of like pioneered, like, well, maybe he didn't pioneer, but him and the Pixies were known for their loud, quiet, loud approach.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
His yowling and howling it's got to be difficult to do.
Yeah. Night after night as you tour across the country, it
Yeah.
might start to do some damage on the voice.
Yeah, but I imagine you talk to Dave about Maynard or Mike Patton, he'd be like, yeah, they do it, no problem, because they're amazing singers.
Frank Black's like an amazing songwriter, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not an amazing singer.
And his lyrics are usually pretty simple. Like, he's not too deep, I don't think. But he's a great lyricist, like you said.
Yeah, his lyrics are often cryptic enough that you can kind of apply whatever you want to them, even as they're vaguely interesting. Often like this album, so much shit about UFOs and then
Yeah.
just kind of like generalized anxiety, but like stuff that you can feel like you can relate to, even if you can't really put your finger on what the fuck he's talking about, but you're not that concerned. Or even like the song Los Angeles, like that song is like, okay, something about Los Angeles, something about Blade Runner. Okay, I like those things. I've never been to LA, but sure. I
Yeah.
can get along with this.
That describes his lyrics perfectly. Like, it's kind of makes sense. Since we've been talking about doing this episode and we've put it off so many times, I remember watching some interviews with him, and he was like, people are asking him like, what does this song mean? And he just looks at them like, you're not gonna like this answer, like, well, I'll just keep it simplistic, and if it sounds good, I put it together. And he's like, people can make of it what they will, but this is my idea of what I had going into it. But every song is for them. Its meaning is for them.
Yeah. Which is a good way to go about it, I think.
Yeah.
It makes it subjective for everybody. I mean, he does have like certain songs that are clearly about something sometimes. Like the last song on Cult of Ray, the song about, I can never remember the kid's name.
Yeah.
But so he does occasionally venture in, do something very specific, but more often than not, it's just like camels and spaceships and, maybe a woman. maybe
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, like I heard Ramona sing.
Which is not about a woman named Ramona.
No, it's about him hearing the Ramones and loving the Ramones or something.
Yeah, I didn't know that for a long time.
Me neither. And I was talking to Sherry about that this morning. She's like, well, who's Ramona? I said, it's actually about the Ramones. She's like, well, why didn't he just think about hearing the Ramones? You know, I was like, I don't know. Like you said, Trev, he just kind of like made things a little bit deeper to make it different, I guess.
Right. And then, like once I learned that it was saying about the Ramones, the lyrics make more sense. He's referring to Ramona as they.
Yeah.
And this was before people really were talking about non-binary and stuff, so it really didn't make sense to me as a kid. I remember wondering about that, but he's talking about the Ramones, which I always like it when bands sing songs about other bands and the impact that they've had on them. And the Ramones clearly had a big impact on Frank Black.
Yeah. I think Iggy Pop did too, I believe. And I think that was one of the reasons why he went with the stage name was because of Iggy Pop.
Yeah.
Yeah, during the first album recording of the Pixies, he decided he wanted a stage name and he went with Black Francis. During an interview, someone had said, he said, it's good enough for Iggy Pop, it's good enough for me. Something like that. And he just stuck with it. But I just wish he would have stuck with one and put all of his songs and albums under that one moniker or whatever. So I could really hear of all of his other the Catholics and etc.
He strikes me as a complicated dude and maybe difficult.
Very. Yeah, after watching all those interviews, I was like, you know the term never meet your heroes? Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to meet them.
I like to listen to him.
I like to listen to him. And like, I watched a documentary about Pixie reunion tour, and he seems super laid back, really easy to deal with. Like, he's older. It was a great documentary. It was on YouTube, and he seems super nice and super chill. But like all the interviews before that, like even after when he's older, like he has no chill for stupid questions. Like I watched an interview and someone was like, so this latest album is called this, Discuss. And Frank's like, this is not what he said, but basically the way he said it better was, you're the one that wanted this interview, fucking asking me questions.
Yeah.
You know? You know? And it's like every interview is like, he does not suffer fools, but he does seem very difficult to interview, or he seems like a difficult guy.
Yeah. Creative force, though, right? Like,
Yes.
a lot of times that's what happens with, especially someone that got pretty big, pretty young. The Pixies were enormous when he was still in his 20s, and they went on to be seen as an incredibly influential band. I mean, rightly so,
Definitely.
but I can imagine that kind of fucking with your ego,
Oh, yeah.
no matter how tightly you hold on to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely a good one. And when you're in your 20s, yeah, who's proud of some of the things I've done instead of the 20s? But I definitely respect the man, and I don't want to judge him based on these interviews, because look at all the actors that do like press kits and like how exhausted
Oh,
they
yeah.
are.
Yeah. You can't hold that stuff against them.
Yeah, like you've been a singer, front man. Look at me, look at me. I'm not that guy, and maybe Frank is an introvert.
Most frontmen are, in a lot of ways. I mean, like,
Right.
I was always more comfortable on the stage than one-on-one.
See, now me, I guess if you were to put me in that position, I'd probably be like Frank. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hurt. And just be not very, like, enough of a jerk to be like, don't ask me to come back. I don't want to do these. You know?
Unless you come prepared, right? Come prepared at the interview.
Oh, maybe that's for Frank. For me, I don't want to be asked. I don't want to be interviewed. Thank you.
All right. Well, that's what we're doing right now. So we can wrap this up.
Because I love you.
I do want to wrap it up, though. Do you have anything else you want to say about Frank Black or this album before we move on to the final stage of the interview?
I think the best song is Old Black Dawning.
I hung around on the planet Babel to try to stand, but she was not able.
Great song. There's a lot of them I consider to be my underrated. That one also was on my mind as well. It's a really, I don't know. Again, like something about space, colonizing space. What is the old black dawning? It sounds like something he just like picked out of a science fiction novel. Just like opened the book and put his finger in there and went, yeah, okay, this is cool. Let's do this paragraph and make a song about it.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on, but it's cool.
He kind of also mentions like Tower of Babel.
Mm-hmm.
Some think it's true, some think it's a fable. Like talking about religion, which
It's a big deal for him.
yeah,
Yeah, he's a really religious guy, which is funny because you and I are not.
yeah. You know, some think it's true, some think it's false. I was like,
Right.
okay. But yeah, it was up there with underrated for me. But
Yeah, religion, Christianity specifically, is infused into all of his albums. Like it's
Right.
just something that it's a part of him. But he does it in such a way that it always comes across like cultural references and not preaching. You know, not like he's trying to like get you to think a certain way or do a certain thing. He's just kind of talking from his perspective, which is something I've always respected about him because he's clearly a Catholic and clearly a practicing Christian, but he's able to present it in a way that it fits into a secular music world.
yeah, I agree. It's definitely not being pushed. It's just like it's something that's part of his life that's brought up once in a while and
Mm-hmm.
referenced here and there, stories and whatnot.
So I remember going on vacation to South Carolina. Do you remember the place that we used to go with Uncle Charlie? The resort Wild Dunes?
Was there a houseboat involved?
No, this was, well, after that, it was usually like a different house we would rent within the resort. And we would stay there for weeks on time on the ocean.
Was this your other brother? Who was this?
This was three of us. We went 2 or 3 times.
Uncomfortable.
And your memory, talking to you makes me feel like I got a steel trap. It really boosts my ego about me.
I'm screwed, man. I am.
So you don't remember being in Charleston and being caught in a rainstorm where it was flooded, and we went to some music store. It's where I got my Dinosaur Jr. giant poster, and I also got a Frank Black t-shirt that said F as in Frank on the front and B as in Black in the back, which is not a great design for a t-shirt, but whatever. You have no recollection of that.
It's a great story. Continue.
Well, my question was, because, you know, I always ask questions kind of related to either the era or the person at the end of the show.
I'll give you an answer as if I was there.
We'll see. I want to talk to you about your memories as far as vacations goes, family vacations. You don't remember that one, which we went there like 3 times, but you don't remember that at all. What do you remember?
And
Family
I'm
vacations?
not the one that did drugs. So what is going on, right?
Did you hit your head a lot? So you do remember going on houseboats. We did that a lot with our uncle.
Yep.
That was more in the 80s when we were a little bit
Ooh.
younger, before the divorce. Do you remember going, say, to...
I remember going to Disney with Dad and you and
Okay.
after the divorce. I
Yeah,
remember.
we went to Disneyland in California.
I thought it was Disney
Oh,
World.
no. We went to Disney World.
Because that's when we first experienced Florida humidity and heat and, hell.
And sunburn. Our sister Carly we all got sun poisoning, but she got it so bad she had to like take these vinegar baths and stuff.
Oh, yeah. And we ran across Peter Alexander, our neighbor,
Oh, yeah.
at the water park.
That's right.
Yeah,
That was weird.
Crazy.
Yeah. Okay. So we have matching memories about that. Good.
That happened.
Do you remember going to I think it was like some sort of state park in Kentucky? I think it was Mammoth Cave National Park. We stayed in a big resort there for days, and we were like one of the only families in there. And at one point, I remember like we were getting dinner, and then like the waitress just never comes. So Dad just got up and like went into the kitchen and like just started getting stuff. Like just grabbed a pot of coffee and started serving other customers and shit.
Yeah, that's a classic John memory. Of all the memories, that's the one I remember.
I love that one. That's one of my favorite memories.
I mean, of all the memories of that trip specifically, that's the one that I remember vividly. Yes.
Yeah. We were so embarrassed, but in retrospect, he was totally right.
Yeah. But, Dad, he handled it Dad way. And nowadays I look at it, I'm like, probably would have done the same thing, gone back there to get more coffee and been like,
Yeah.
hey, you need some coffee?
It's been like a half an hour. What are you doing? There's
Yeah.
3 people here.
I do remember that. And that was like a wide open, like you could look down and see the entire lobby and we'd run around.
Yeah.
down there.
Okay,
I
good.
remember that.
This is what I was hoping that you would remind me of things that I forgot. Not necessarily that I would remind you of things that you forgot, but I should have known who I was dealing with.
I swear my body has not been snatched by an alien. I just have a bad memory.
So what, do you remember any other vacations?
I remember most of our vacations were to family. Tennessee and West Virginia, our families didn't have the cash for these larger vacations that you just brought up. I think they happened when they were footed by possibly Charlie or helped out by Charlie
Mm.
after like divorce, where it was trying to make us feel better for the crappy situation, you know?
Yeah, I mean, definitely there was a lot more driving to see family more than anything else. So maybe we just named all the vacations because I don't really remember any other ones.
There's another one
What's
that
what?
mom took us on that to Myrtle Beach.
Myrtle
You
Beach.
and I were still very, what's the term for teenagers that are
Assholes.
assholes?
We were assholes.
Angst, very angsty.
Yeah.
It was hot as hell. We're both wearing black long sleeve shirts, hoodies, and we're in Myrtle Beach. And I think it was around middle school.
Yeah.
I was definitely, I don't think my looks improved until after I graduated high school.
We had sustained awkward years.
Yes. Very long, awkward years. And there was a arcade down there on the strip that had Robotech video game.
Yeah.
Stand-up cabinet.
Unbelievable. Never saw it after.
Never ever again. I've looked it up. I'm like, when I get rich one day, I'm going to own that damn cabinet. Anyways, it drove Mom and Carly crazy because we didn't want to leave that place because we were heavily into role-playing games at the time.
Especially Robotech.
Robotech and Riffs and whatnot.
Yeah. So Mom spends all this money to take us down to the beach, and she could not get us to leave the lobby of the hotel because we would just fucking play that game the whole week.
Yeah, her 2 black-clad potatoes that just wanted to sit in the arcade.
Yeah, I've totally changed.
Yeah, me too. Every time I go and visit Carly and everyone, they're always like, "You're so tan." Not the case. I'm the palest. I'm always in front of my computer working.
Yeah, that was kind of maybe embarrassing in retrospect, but man, what a fucking game. We knew we were never going to play it again. I think we talked about it. I remember being like, we've never seen this before. For all we know, we're never going to see a Robotech arcade game again. Let's just play it.
It was never going to happen again.
And it didn't.
Yeah. To this day, I tell people, they'll talk about Avatar and blah, blah, blah. Like, didn't you go home and watch Avatar? I'm like, no, I went home and I watched Robotech. There were explosions, and you could see the skeletons of burning, exploding people in the explosions. Like, you don't see that in cartoons in America. But we did.
We loved that. Yeah. Characters die. We loved it.
Yeah, it was space opera is what it was. And
yeah.
I think it probably fostered my love for space opera. But you're right, that video game, we spoke like, we'll never play this game again. We'll never see it again. And Mom and Carl are like, come on, let's do something. We're like, we'll be right there. Just give us $20 more. You know?
I remember also that Virtua Fighter was in there too, and Carly was just schooling us on Virtua Fighter. We couldn't figure out why, because like we played it all the time.
Smashing buttons works.
Smashing buttons was just kicking our ass.
Yeah.
I do recall that. All right, man. Well, thank you for coming on, talking Frank Black, and jogging each other's memories about our own lives. It's very unclear to both of us.
Right.
Judd and I left out a critical point about that story about my dad going into the kitchen of that restaurant to grab the coffee pot. He didn't get it just for himself. He went around the restaurant to everybody that had coffee and offered it to them as well. I gotta love my dad. He's so funny. And you gotta love my brother. I hope you enjoyed the conversation that he and I had. We've got kind of a dry wit in my family, I think, and Judd is perhaps the driest of us. Really appreciate him coming back on and spending time with me, and I appreciate you listening as well. Perhaps you yourself want to come on the show and talk about an album from 1993 or 1994. I'd love it if you did. You could talk about pretty much any album you want that I haven't already done. such as the 1993 compilation album fittingly titled Added Up from the band The Violent Femmes.
Life was fun, life was great, until I made my big mistake. Oh no, it never happened to me. Life was short and life was sweet. I was thinking as I hit the street, I could hardly believe, I could scarce conceive that I had gone out the window. I had gone out the window. I had gone out the window.
This compilation was kind of a best of, and it also included some unreleased tracks, and it also had some live versions of stuff. It was fun. It was kind of a mix, and it also included this song, Out the Window. So maybe you want to come on and talk about the Femmes, or any other album that was released from 93 or 94. I'm not picky, man. I'm not picky. If you want to come on the show, or if you just want to say hi, you can email me at 9394podcast@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook, and that is going to be... Wait, is there anything else I need? Yeah, actually, rate, review, do that whole thing, please. Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you again. Have a good one. '93-'94, a music podcast with Travis Roy, is a labor of love. It is not and never will be monetized. Please don't sue.